Greetings, I am Erin Patten, metaphysical master in a millennial age, and it is my life's purpose to guide you and organizations along an enlightened path. So I invite you to sit comfortably and tune in as I welcome you to the Meta Business Millennial, where we get the real conversations you won't get in the boardroom so that we understand this is exactly the path we need to be on in order to grow, evolve, and thrive. Greetings, I am Erin Patten, also known as Master L, and welcome to the Meta Business Millennial podcast. We are live on YouTube, we are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and I could not be happier to be with all of you this Monday, Rising Monday, and I'm just grateful. And if you haven't already, I hope that you will subscribe to my channels, follow me on social media at I am Erin Patten. And of course, if you feel called and this message resonates with you, definitely like this video and share it with a friend, because all of these messages need to be shared. Okay. So let's go ahead and just hop into it for today, because really the ethos of my business, the Meta Business World, that I founded in November of 2020, coming up on 4 years this year. The ethos is to lead and to fundamentally sustain and build future compatible businesses. Because as we've done business in the past, many of the ways we've done business in the past, with the burnout, with the stress, with the isolation, with the competition, a lot of things. I mean, we can dig a little bit more deeper into those elements. The way we've done business in the past is essentially not compatible for the future. And I'll say that again. The way we've done business in the past, it is not compatible with the future. So really, this episode is about speaking to leaders, speaking to entrepreneurs, to anyone who is really passionate about their careers and how to go about preparing themselves and also their organizations for the future, and making sure that we're essentially future ready and future compatible. So for all of you out there that are really interested in wanting to build and create and sustain a business that's going to be incredibly successful, incredibly profitable, bring you wealth, but then also not drain you, but give you life, give you happiness, give you pleasure, give you joy, this episode is absolutely for you. So let's go ahead and dig into it. And particularly the piece around the way we've done business in the past, because it's what I like to call, and what I speak to particularly on my website and my articles and things that I write about organizations, is the dis-ease. And, we're very familiar with the word disease, particularly in medicine and healthcare. Disease is really something that needs to be treated, or an illness, or a lack of stability in the body. And dis-ease, so it's not at a state of ease, so it's at a state of dis-ease. And many times, most people are talking about how toxic their work environments are, how much they can't speak up for themselves, how so much under pressure they feel, blah, blah, blah. They're always putting out fires. Well, essentially, this is the state of organizational dis-ease. And, we're at that stage a lot of times across, whether it be small companies, because I experienced this in my own life as an entrepreneur, or working in corporate America. And oftentimes, it doesn't even matter, because we have those same and we exhibit those same characteristics, whether it's small, working for ourselves, or working with other people, because of our own conditioning around how we should be and perform in our work environments. And a lot of times when we think about our work, we compartmentalize ourselves. And I know this was a huge part of my learning, going through corporate training, going through corporate America, also working across industries, whether it be nonprofit or philanthropy or government. And one thing that's pretty consistent across all those industries is people's wanting to compartmentalize and essentially and I also use the word mask. However, compartmentalized could be more accurate for people because it could be part of themselves. They aren't masking per se, but they aren't bringing all of themselves to the work environment. And oftentimes because it's just not allowed. So when you show up to work, you're generally very serious. You're doing your highs and buys, your little, superficial office chatter, how you doing, how your kids maybe. It may not even get there because oftentimes we come into meetings and we just jump right into the work. No one really cares about you or how you feel or how your kids are doing. And that fundamentally is just not a sustainable way of being because it's not authentic. When we show up in front of people, we need to be able to be and say and do all of that, all of who we are, and bring all of who we are, of course, within reason. However, when we're not doing it, it is still felt energetically. And I really want to dig into this piece because this is why I'm a metaphysical master. This is why this is the Meta Business Millennial podcast, is we have to talk about the metaphysical aspects of this. Because even though those tensions or whatever you're bringing to the table may not be being said, whether it has to do with work or whether it has to do with your personal life, trust me, it is felt. It is felt in the room. And that's essentially the energetic aspect of it. So let's just start with an example. So for example, say, you're working with your team members and you have something going on, say with your spouse, and y'all are your partner, and y'all are getting into it or you're not really happy, and you're coming to work and you are visibly, you haven't been sleeping, you guys are, maybe not even sleeping in the same rooms or whatever's going on, and you haven't been sleeping, you haven't been eating, like things are going, maybe y'all have kids together, the kids situation's kind of falling apart as well because of the disconnectivity between the couple, and you're having to still show up in your fullness at work. And the people who you work with every day and you see, particularly your manager, who you should have a trusting relationship with, is noticing that you've changed, noticing that you look tired, noticing that you're not showing up with enthusiasm, noticing that you're not giving your all to this project, or you're making mistakes, or you're forgetting things. And then they attribute that to your skills versus maybe what's going on emotionally in your life. So a way to sort of address this dynamic very, candidly, would be to express what's going on in your life, particularly in a safe environment, to those you're working with. Say, hey, I've not been able to sleep the past few days. I'm going through a difficult time with my spouse and my kids. I'm really trying my best with this assignment. I really need some grace or some support in this area. It's really that simple. And I feel like people don't like to talk about these things because maybe they don't want to have a pity party, or even the manager, like, or do they even have the space to hold this kind of emotion? This is why the meta business world work is super important. And this is why, we go into organizations and skill up managers and leaders to be able to hold the space for these kinds of conversations, because we are very diverse, divergent, expansive, evolved beings. And when we show up into spaces and places, all of who we are is being felt. And I want, if you leave with nothing else from this episode, please leave with that. Noticing how the energy feels in the room with the people around you. Noticing their facial expressions, noticing their body language, noticing just how it feels to be with them, on a good day versus a bad day. And particularly as a leader, being able to have the compassion to open up a conversation around it, of course, at the appropriate time. Because this is essentially what people in general around the world crave, is to be seen. Whether it's by you, by their spouse, by their children, by anyone, but particularly as a leader, you are being called to see yourself first, of course, but then also see those who you're working with or working around or leading. And to be able to operate with that level of compassion really requires, of course, work upon your part, being able to see yourself, being able to acknowledge, what's going on in your life that may be, a distraction or disease, going back to that word about the disease, like what's not bringing you ease in your life? How do you nurture it? If you haven't already named it, how do you see what it is, name it? How do you nurture it? And then how do you kind of let it go? And then as we do that work, then we're able to support other people around us and also create the structure to support other people around us. For example, in my own organization, and I know a lot of leaders do this, but taking the time to meet with each of my employees one on one, and we just spend time talking about everything but work. Of course, work slips in because that's just life is work, work is life, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it's really focused on the individual, on their families, on who they are, on their emotions, what's going on in their lives. How can they show up better for themselves and for their families? And this is my role as a leader to do this with folks who I work with. And of course it's out of love and out of, compassion, but it's also good business sense. It makes great business sense as well, and there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like too there's this piece around um oh, they're just doing it for the business or they're just doing it to make more money. Absolutely, that's the point of a business. That's the goal of the business. So we shouldn't lose that. And I feel like even for myself in my evolution of my work, I wanted to kind of say like, oh, let's not worry about the money or let's not worry about the profitability because let's focus on the well-being and those aspects. But we have to also focus on the end result, the end goal, particularly for companies that are measured on how much money they make. Of course, we're moving into a space where we have more metrics. We're trying to be more, you know, uh, uh, accurate too in our wealth measurements, and I'm doing that work both personally and I would say, professionally. And yet, we really need to understand that yes, this money is critical. The making the money, the profitability, the sustainability, essentially, of the organization. Yet we also have to know that we have to pair those money goals with the well-being goals, with understanding what's going on in people's lives, with understanding what's going on in our own lives, and then bringing all of that to the table. I really fundamentally believe that that's necessary because if we aren't knowing and understanding where we're coming from, how are we going to know where we're going? Or how do we extend that grace to give those supports in those areas where we don't know what we're doing and we don't know where we're going? And so coming back to the piece around the future compatibility and understanding that how we've done business in the past is not compatible with how we're doing business in the future. These fundamentally are the pathways. Speaking more about who we are with our colleagues, essentially holding that space for trust. I think that's something that I need to come back to because a lot people are like, okay, Erin, you really want me to talk to my coworkers and my colleagues about my spouse or what's going on in my relationship? Like, I don't trust those people like that. I don't fuck with those people like that. I feel you. I 100% feel you. And essentially, this is why this work is really targeted to folks that are of leadership in leadership roles and leadership positions so that they can model this behavior themselves. And then the folks in their organization can feel more comfortable with that type of sharing and that type of and creating that space first of all for that type of sharing because like I said, like these are very personal vulnerable moments. And when we have those personal and vulnerable moments, we need to feel safe for it to even make sense. And so, in leadership roles, as an entrepreneur, as a director, as a manager, wherever you sit in the organization, you're leading someone somewhere. Is creating that safe space for the folks who you work with to share with you in an honest and an open way and being able to have the capacity to receive whatever they have to say. And I feel like fundamentally, this is also part of the work as a leader, as a manager, as a director, is how do I hold the space for the feedback? Can I even handle it? And that's a real ass question because, the truth hurts and the truth can be harsh. And I know that even in my journey and coming out of business school and going into feedback meetings and performance meetings, I mean, I used to dread that type of thing because I really struggled with criticism because that's really all I could focus on. I had a very punishing approach, even to my own work style. Like, I really just, if I didn't do things right, I was always focused on what I needed to improve, as opposed to really noticing my gifts and my strengths and my talents, which is more of the abundant mindset. And, moving out of that sort of victim lack mindset is critical as a leader. We have to understand that we need to see sort of the bigger picture, and it's easier to see that bigger picture when we're looking at the brighter side as opposed to the negative aspects of our critiques or our feedback or what people are going through. It just is what it is, not attributing the negative, positive aspects to it. And that takes work to see things as they are, to see things as they is, to see things as they be. So let's take an example of that leadership role, of you holding that space for trust. It comes first from you in that modeling. So, for example, when I go into my meetings with my team, I'm open and sharing like what I did that weekend, what's going on in my personal life, what's going on, with my family, what's going on with my own being and my own journey and my own faults. And it creates that space and that openness for them to share the same with me. And I've been in tears in front of my colleagues. I've spoken some harsh, hard truths. Going through the cyclical aspects of business, particularly as an entrepreneur. I mean, in any way, in any business, there's no straight trajectory. There's definitely lots of squiggly lines, lots of drops, lots of rises, and it's really not focused so straight and narrow, if you will. And so we really want to start understanding that, communicating that to our team members, particularly as leaders, as entrepreneurs, our own journeys is critical in helping them understand that this is a safe space for them to share the same with us. And this is how we support each other. Not only this is how we support each other, this is how we work better together. This is how we co-create ideas. And this is how we build and grow a sustainable, future compatible business, a business that will actually bring us pleasure and joy and also pay us until, into the future. And I know that we, and especially this millennial generation and in Gen Z and all the other generations, aren't as focused on having a forever home for work, which is totally cool. Yet at the same time, we gotta work. We gotta work and we gotta show up someplace every day. So we have bills to pay, we have the obligations, et cetera, et cetera. Particularly in this reality, this is just what it is right now. And so, for what it is right now, how do we prepare ourselves and our beings to really show up? To show up in truth, to show up in happiness, to show up in being at pleasure, have fun. Like, how many times are we going to work and being like, I really had fun today? Like, this is something that I even talked to my son about because he goes, he said goes to daycare and he hangs out, goes to the different class. And the first thing we say, did you have fun? or he says, like, I had so much fun. But I rarely ever have had that experience, in my past corporate life. But what I do now, even like with this podcast, is like when I'm finished, I'm like, this was so juicy. Like, this felt so good. I may have like however many people in the room, but I'm enjoying myself. I'm enjoying myself. I get to wake up every day and do what I love, inspire people, motivate people, speak my truth, share my story, teach in the process, maybe, have other people. And I get testimonials. It's just so amazing. I get testimonials of people who've made more money using some of my methodologies, who have healed their bodies, who have healed their relationships because of my messages, because of my teaching, because of my energy. Like, this is the greatest gift, to be able to do this work. And we all should feel that way about what we do. We deserve it. We really do. And that's the piece where I hope too that you can take away from this podcast is knowing that you deserve to have that joy in your work, in your career. You deserve to have that passion and that drive. So you wake up every day motivated intrinsically to do the work for yourself and for mankind. This is why we came to this planet. And so when we are going through challenges, like I said, with the dis-ease, the organizational dis-ease, trust in the healing process. And that first starts with you and seeing a vision for something different. And, I'm just going to try to come up with an example here, but say there is some disruption among your team. People aren't getting along. Well, first, it's incumbent upon you to imagine a team that can operate well together, not fall into sort of the victim, he say, she say stuff that's happening with the team, knowing that we can rise above your team, and you included, especially have to rise above and can get over the situation. You have to be able to see that vision and then start to cultivate the strength in your own being, the energy in your own being to have the necessary conversations, to hold the necessary workshops. That's something that the meta business world can do. Come in and work with your team for VIP day activation or a strategy session to really start to open up the space for some of these tensions to be resolved. Because essentially that's all they are. And generally, we don't have the proper communication mechanisms within organizations to communicate those tensions, to communicate the problems. Yeah, we have our team meetings, but usually our team meetings are very operationally focused. We're focusing on tasks, we're focusing on projects, we're focusing on deadlines. When do we actually make the time to focus on problems, to focus on tensions, to focus on the unseen, but the felt? Like, I feel like this is a very tense environment. I'm being blamed. I'm being called racist. I'm being called sexist. I'm being accused of this. Like, there's a lot of that goes through these organizations. When do we create the space and how to resolve those tensions? And this is fundamentally the work of the meta business world, where we're able to come in into your organization and really create the space to activate, of course, the energetic potential of the individuals, and then hold the safe container to really speak to life the changes that you want to see in your work environment. And then create a strategy, incremental strategy to get there. That's what it looks like. That's what the work looks like. And so essentially, we really want to start, of course, with ourselves and understanding, okay, this is where I'm coming from. I want to see this healthier, happier work environment for me and my team. Okay, you set that vision. Okay, now I have to do the work. So I have to make sure, okay, I'm energetically sound. I know who I am. I'm able to hold the space for people to speak to me about what's really going on and not judge, not feel, attacked, not feel offended, but want to bring resolutions to these problems. And once you start to have those resolutions, then the trust starts to build. And then when you have that trust, then people are able to speak more, share more, have more ideas. And then you move out of this space of what I like to call, particularly in modern day business, where people are parents. Managers are mostly parenting and micromanaging, as opposed to allowing their team to be self managed, self governed, self motivated, self inspired. And then here you are, you're like this great conductor, and you're conducting, you have your ideas and you're able to share them, and they actually manifest in perfect form. And this is what it looks like to have a future compatible business, and not a business where you're constantly stressed, you're constantly putting out fires. Every day feels like an 80-hour day. It's like Tuesday, goddamn, how am I get through the week? Like this is not how work should feel. Yet we've become accustomed to this reality. Yet fundamentally, like what do we always talk about in metaphysics? We are creators of our own reality. So we can uncreate the bullshit and recreate a more enjoyable experience. But first, you have to have the vision. You have to be able to see this more enjoyable experience. A lot of times we are stuck and mired in the shit, and this is all we can see because this is all there has been. Yet we are in a new day and time. We are future ready individuals and beings. We are ready to really accelerate into this newer, higher path. And with that desire comes new visions, comes new ways of operating, comes new blueprints, new systems, new frameworks, new strategies. You have to be willing to allow yourself to do that very beautiful work of dreaming, imagining, being creative in that process, and allowing it all to unfold as you are opening up this space for more conversations, for more vulnerability, for more compassion, for more probably difficult conversations. And it's when we start to have these more challenging conversations when we really start to unlock our highest potential. Without pain, there's no gain, no pain, no gain. Without, conflict and distress, without no pressure, there's no diamonds. So it's going to require a little bit of pressure. It's going to require a lot of bit of work. It's going to require some digging into those aspects of that energy that you feel in the room, those tensions that you feel, and bring them up. Talk about them, resolve them, so we can really begin to move forward. This is not just for organizations, this is for relationships. This is for, socio-political issues. This can run the gamut of everything in our lives. The more we feel comfortable in sharing the truth, our truth, even if it's different from yours, and then you allowing that space for those different ideas to be shared, and then vice versa, you sharing your truth, and then having the receiver holding that space for your different ideas without judgment. This is how it works. The reciprocity, the empathy, the vulnerability, it actually creates the healing of the organizational disease that I was speaking to at the beginning, so that we can put the tensions to bed, really work well together, and grow our business. Get this money, get to our ideas, get to the innovation, get to all the things that we came here to do. And so with that, I really feel like this is coming to a close, today's podcast, and I really hope that you all are thinking, or like this is really sitting well with you, or you're able to receive these messages about how to create and sustain future compatible businesses and what it really takes as leaders wherever you sit in the organization, because I don't really just see leaders as the CEOs, as the execs. You can lead in your admin seat. You can lead from the janitorial closet. You can lead from the parking lot valet. You can lead from your middle management seat. We work with people wherever we are, and people see you. People are watching you, whether you like it or not. So if they're watching you, if they're all up in your business, make sure your business is worth being all up in. Making sure you're walking the right path, making sure you're being open in your truth, making sure you're being your highest self. And that is exactly how you grow, you accelerate, you make more money, you have better relationships, and your organization benefits, because energy is contagious. It really is. And so with that, I want to thank you so much for watching this episode. I really invite you to check out more of my resources at erinpatten.com. Of course, follow me across social media at I am Erin Patten. The Meta Business Millennial podcast also has its own handle, so definitely look us up. And of course, like I said in the beginning, if you love this, if you like this, share it with a friend, drop a comment, give me an update on how this is resonating with you, because I love to hear your testimonials. I really love to hear how the affirmations are creating so much success in your life. I love to hear about how you're having healing moments with your family and friends. Like, I'm so grateful for all of you who continue to show up with me and just show up and show out for me, because I just love it. So again, thank you so much for watching the Meta Business Millennial podcast. Until next week, peace. Did you really love this episode of the Meta Business Millennial podcast? Well, I am honored, and I appreciate you subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends, because your feedback allows us to co-create more enlightened conversations. And if you're interested in growing your soul now, head over to my website, erinpatten.com, to find all the show notes, links, and free resources to get your energy activated today. In the meantime, stay bright, my friends. Much love and light. Peace.